Jonathan Fisher is a reporter with a deadline.
Why is it I can't get anybody to talk to me out here?
Look, I gotta go.
He's about to get a dangerous idea. But he'd better wise up fast, because there's only one way to survive on the streets.
I'll blow your brains out right now. If I'm dead, you're dead.
Christopher Reeve, Morgan Freeman, Street Smart.
A 6-hour minimum for all shows going forward.
Sweet.
That's the new thing. That being said, welcome back to a brand new episode of Reconcinimation. I'm John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we've got a good one today. This is one that I've been excited about for a long time. It's one of those gems, forgotten movies that nobody talks about. And we're bringing it back here on the show. But, you know, we've had a really exciting summer that ended with Alcatraz August, and we looked back at Point Blank, and we looked back at The Rock, which was a very fun episode. But then here at Reconcinimation, it gets dark in September. We always kind of get dark right before Halloween. We get dark a little early. Last year we sometimes do Tarantino things. We did True Romance last year. Previously, we've done Reservoir Dogs, but we also did like Rolling Thunder and Assault on Precinct 13, and we've got another, you know, kind of dark-ish movie in concept here today, and we are looking back at 1987's Street Smart.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Here we go.
And welcome to the show. Again, we're trying to get people in that haven't appeared on the show before. We've got Morgan Freeman today and Christopher Reeve.
Wow, look at that. We haven't had them yet.
Can you believe it? A podcast that looks back at 80s movies has not had Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. I mean, and Morgan Freeman. Like he's been kind of a staple in Hollywood movies for quite some time, but I guess that really didn't start till the very end of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, 89 was his big year, and that really boosted him, you know, to the level that he's been at ever since. And but you wouldn't have had that without this movie in particular. So that's kind of the interesting thing. One of the most interesting things about Street Smart is the step up it gave Morgan Freeman. But for those maybe that are just listening to the show because they love hearing us every week and maybe haven't seen the movie, David, can you give a quick rundown of the plot of the film?
Sure. The protagonist, played by Christopher Reeve, is a New York journalist who he tries to make a great big story, and he couldn't do it, so he makes up a story, and it impacts. The story is about a New York City pimp and his lifestyle. It's like a profile piece, and he lies and makes the whole thing up. And coincidentally, it describes a real pimp who is on trial for murder, and he gets tangled in there in all the legal and criminal activities, and in his personal life. Chaos ensues.
Chaos ensues. David, when was the first time you heard about this movie? I can't imagine you knew of it before I probably started getting on my high horse on it.
Yeah, I think I heard a few years ago you had told me about it, and then I watched it, I don't know, I want to say 2-3 years ago for the first time. I needed some Reeve.
Got to get a little Reeve once in a while.
I was hangry for some Reeve, and so it was so I had to give that a shot. And then, of course, with Morgan Freeman together with him, I mean, that's a no-brainer. You got to watch this movie. That's what I thought at the time.
Yeah. Was this a COVID watch for you? Was this after COVID?
Can't remember. I don't think so.
I feel like it was. I feel like it was one of those. Maybe not. Maybe right before.
It might be around. It could have been. I mean, there was not a lot to do at a certain point. I
Yeah.
feel like it was just pre-COVID for me.
Mm.
So I think I would have gone down to the video rental store.
Mm.
The one that
Videotech?
Videotech in South Pasadena. Yeah, I think that's where I would have picked it up. And I haven't been there. I've only been there in like back in the early pandemic. I was only there once or twice, and not lately. So
Well,
yeah.
thankfully they made it through the pandemic, unlike many movie theaters.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Still going on. It's crazy.
R.I.P. ArcLight.
But
I heard it's coming back, right?
The Cinerama Dome's coming back, and yeah, I
Okay.
think the ArcLight is under some kind of new name, and details are unclear. But
Yeah.
Well,
Brent,
that's
what about
progress? Let's go
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
right direction.
Yeah, we got to have the dome in LA. You got
Yeah, I mean, the Cinerama Dome that was a big. I mean, that was pretty devastating when that closed.
Yeah.
that was closing
Yeah.
down. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that they are gonna. Bring it
Even if
back.
the other arc lights had closed and just Hollywood stayed open, like that would have been.
Yeah, I mean,
we
the
could live with
Cinerama
that.
Dome and that arc light, is iconic. So
Yeah.
it's like for Sunset right there, or
Yep.
I mean, that Amoeba Records, is that Amoeba Records still there? I remember
They
that
moved.
closed down too, or moved,
It
and that
closed, but that was right before the pandemic, and it moved not too far away, but still in Hollywood.
Oh, they
Still a
opened
pretty big
another
deal,
location.
Yeah, they got a bigger place and
Yeah.
like designed it specifically for the way they wanted.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Still kind of a bummer though. The charm of the old place is
Yeah.
gone. So, let's see. The question to me is: first time. When did I first hear about this movie?
Yes.
I recognize the poster art. Christopher
Mhm.
Reeve standing kind of on looks like a street corner, but I had no idea what this movie was about, and I had never really seen it. I've seen it twice now, both times in the last week, and so I thought that this movie was about Christopher Reeves being a stand-up comedian, just
'cause of the
based off the
microphone.
poster art, because he's standing there. He looks like a deer in headlights. He's got the microphone, and that's what from my young kid brain, when I'd see this walking by at the video store, that's what I thought it was. And it was rated R, and I never really felt compelled to watch it until we were prepping for this.
Oh.
Yeah, surprisingly enough.
I
Although I
can-
feel like this season there's been a handful of those. So
Yeah.
what am
Yep.
I even doing here?
I can totally see that. I mean, I had a similar memory. Like I remember seeing the poster in Movies One. That was one of my two local video stores, pre-Blockbuster. So, and it's same thing. Like the cover, that poster just fascinated me. Just the lighting that was on him and what's he doing, and mostly it was like, what's Superman doing in this movie? Like he's
Very true.
he's not Superman. How can that be?
Yeah.
And it made it on a list that my uncle had given me. That was before I went to film school, of must-watch movies, and I still don't. I think I've seen half of what's on there because some of it is, or at least for a long time, was hard to find on video and was out of print, and I haven't really gone back to it, but it was. This was one of the ones on there, and I didn't see the movie until I think it was the summer of 2000, and I was home from college, just kind of not really doing anything, and it was like I just caught it on TV in the middle of the afternoon, like a total couch day, just not doing anything, and I was just completely sucked in. Like I caught it right as the opening credits hit, and I was just like, boom, I was in the movie and blown away by Morgan Freeman, and such an intense character, which we'll talk about, and just seeing Christopher Reeve outside of Superman. He was still alive at the time that I saw this, but it was just, there's not that many great Christopher Reeve movies, outside there. There's only really a handful, so it was really cool to see like something I just barely knew of. So. Yeah, and I loved it the first time I saw it. Watching it now was a little bit of a, I had a little bit of a different experience with it. But before we kind of start our deep dive, let's just do a trivia question like we did in our last episode. We'll come back to it at the end.
The fans love the trivia.
The fans love the mail just came. They came in bags and bags.
Yeah,
a lot of good feedback. This is one of two films that co-star Morgan Freeman and Kathy Baker. Who can name the other one?
Ooh, okay.
So write in, tweet at us at Reconcinimation Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and fire away. Tell us what you think. End of the episode, we will reveal. So, all right. This is little known story that this is based on I believe this was a true story from the Washington Post. A writer who worked for them named Janet Cook admitted to fictionalizing a story about an 8-year-old heroin addict because of pressure that her editors were giving her about coming up with a big story. So she had, I think, won the Pulitzer for it, and then had to give it back, and obviously let go of at the newspaper. And a year later, screenwriter David Freeman writes this story. So I can't imagine this wasn't loosely based on that, but who knows? Maybe sheer coincidence.
Yeah, maybe it planted a seed. I mean, there's obviously some major differences between that and this, but I see the similarity and kind of the through line of the made up news and it associating with someone in reality.
Yeah, I mean, distrusting the popular media, it's like, that's pretty heavy. That's a pretty big scandal. And then like to fictionalize, I mean, you make up any compelling story and add your level of drama to it. I could see this being heavily inspired by that, right? I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I can't imagine that. I mean, God knows how many times that's actually happened and just gone undiscovered. Now, Christopher Reeve. Let's come back to our friend Christopher here. How big of a fan were you guys of his? Did you grow up how much did you love Superman growing up? It was such a huge movie, I think, for our generation.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I love his Superman movies. I mean, at least the first 3. The fourth one, I haven't. Are you kidding? Yes, absolutely. Richard Pryor. Hey man, we've talked about this before. The
Richard Pryor movie co-starring Superman.
Superman 3 is low-key awesome. Just heads up.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, whatever your feelings are for Superman 3, Christopher Reeves was, like a huge influence, like you were saying, for children growing up in that time period. And I loved Superman. As a matter of fact, as soon as I finished watching this movie, I turned on Superman.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I need a Christopher Reeves movie that I can get behind.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Superman right now because this one fell a little flat for me. So at least his character is, I don't know, and this is very interesting. And just I feel like doesn't stand up as strong as nearly as like Morgan Freeman or even Kathy Baker, who, for me, those are like the two strongest points of this movie. But yeah, as soon as this was over, I was like, all right, Soup, let's check it out. Let's get on that.
Sure. Yeah. The Superman was on all the time. That's one of my earliest memories of things on a television.
Yeah. Same.
It's just there. It's ingrained. It's foundational. So, if I was always a big fan of that Superman. And Christopher Reeve was, I've only seen a few other movies of his along with these, and so I always a fan. 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. I Superman was a huge movie for me. It was one of the very first movies I saw. I had 1 and 2. I guess 1, 2, and 3 on Betamax, And then
As
I
you
had-
should.
yeah, exactly. And then I had what was it? I had the first one in a clamshell VHS. The big tall clamshell that you could drop off the like roof of a building and it would be fine.
It's ready for nuclear fallout.
Yeah. But I watched 1 and 2 religiously. Huge movies, and he was a huge star. I mean, playing Superman, and what's I think still considered the best Superman movies, but between the Brandon Routh and the was it Zack Snyder? Was it Zack Snyder who directed the other
Man of
recent ones?
Steel.
Yeah,
Man
Zack,
of Steel. Yeah.
Zack
Yeah.
Snyder, I think. Yeah.
It was Zack Snyder with the Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and Justice League disasters.
Although I like Henry Cavill as Superman, but
agreed. Yeah, I don't think he's a bad Superman. I
the movies are not good.
don't love the path they
Unfortunately.
went on. Any of the
Yeah.
DC.
I don't think.
movies.
Yeah.
So really, these 1 and 2 are the definitive Superman movies, and we did discuss them a little bit in our look back at some Richard Donner films after he sadly passed away, and there's so much going on with Superman 2 in particular, where 1 and 2 were really shot back to back, but Donner was fired 3/4 of the way through Superman 2, so the producers brought in a new director, Richard Lester, to kind of redo some of what Donner did, mostly just so that he could get the credit, the actual directed by credit.
Right.
But then the Donner cut came out years later, which is an interesting view. And I've heard back and forth whether people like the Donner cut versus the original. I never really had a problem with the original. So
I loved the original,
yeah,
but
I
the
still
Donner
wanna-
cut's cool too.
I still want to see the Donner cut. I haven't seen it.
I think my biggest gripe with the Donner cut is that it's, like it's just difficult because it's incomplete. Like there's
Mhm.
just a lot of,
yeah, it's incomplete effects,
it's
right?
it's unpolished, and so like, I mean, it's fun to see the intention of some of the things, but from like a complete movie going experience, like, I mean, I think if I was going to sit down and watch one, I would choose the theatrical release
Mhm.
over the Donner cut.
Yeah, but Christopher Reeve was so huge in the early 80s. I mean, those movies were massive, and at the time it seemed like he was going to be as big as another up and coming person like Harrison Ford. Like there was no reason to believe that his career was not going to progress that way, but he never really, I don't want to say he was typecast, but I think he kind of was. Like he never really shook off Superman. And while he had other great roles like Somewhere in Time and Death Trap, none of those took off, like Superman did. And he was kind of stuck with that character. And even into the 90s, I think, was it Village of the Damned that he was in? I think it was Village of the Damned, where that was
Right. Yeah.
one of the few times in the 90s you saw him. And that was right before, I think that came out like right before his accident where he was paralyzed.
I mean, he was in a bunch of like TV movies and things like that, but yeah, his theatrical career never really took off. And I don't know. I think you're right. I mean, as far as being typecast, like I think he had a hard time shaking that kind of like wholesome, do-gooder kind of thing. Like Superman. It's great for the Superman movies, and it works really well. And I think, I don't know, I feel like I got a sense of some of that even in this, like just some of his delivery and the way that he approaches acting, like he's sort of soft-spoken and,
Yeah. But it's not that he didn't have range either, because you look at Superman 3, where there's like the doppelganger,
Bizarro.
that's like super villain. And he was good and scary, as that villain character.
Absolutely. So, I think that was an attempt to show people that he had
yeah
range, right? So
he's a talented guy. He might be too good looking, honestly. Like there's something about how because I think that with his style of acting, I think like it's almost like he's too, because like his style is a little soft spoken. Sure, he's got range. He can play angry and violent, but it really tonally a lot. It's just It's like he's just such a soft-spoken guy in a sense.
He's just not gritty enough. He's too damn handsome.
I can't buy him as too, I don't know,
He's too
menacing.
likable. You know, like, is he just
I
too
think-
appearance wise?
Yeah, I think so. I just like that could be part of it. I mean, we didn't get to see him really branch out after he was after in his 40s. Like he was injured when he
Mhm.
was 42, 43. But you know, it's so we never get to see him do some. I don't think. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his movies too, but I don't know.
Well, I think
I'm not saying he's bad. It's just there was something about him that was just like, man, it's easy to like put him in as Superman, Clark Kent, because maybe like he kind of is. He's kind of
Mhm.
Clark
Right.
Kent-y, you know.
Well, it's you know, to me, it's similar to Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. You know, it was like just hard for an audience to see them as anything but that character or something like that character. And I don't know if it was producers also feeling that way and just not wanting to, you know, like, oh, Superman can't play that, you know,
Yeah.
like they didn't want to get them involved in projects or what it was. But
Yeah.
I think
Well,
you're
and-
right, though. I think his general appearance had maybe a little bit something to do with it.
I think, and then I mean, because look at his actual performance in Superman. He plays Clark Kent, and he plays Superman, and they are distinct characters. He plays
Like-
them so well that you can buy the silliness of the fact that people don't realize they're the same person. But like
Well,
you know,
wait. One of
puts-
them has glasses.
Yeah,
And
come
one
on.
of them doesn't.
They're
have
not.
glasses.
They're not the same person, dude.
but what was it? Which was it in 1 or 2 where he, I don't know, he gets shot or whatever, and then he takes off his glasses, and then he like
2.
grows
Yeah.
6 inches, and then like it's like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
you don't even realize what he's been doing. you know?
Yeah.
And it's so obviously, yeah, talented guy. But sometimes I think like some people are just, I bet you in live theater he must have been dominant though.
Mhm.
Like sometimes there's just like they're great actors, but somehow they don't translate exactly well to me on film and TV.
Yeah.
But
no,
on
like-
theater they would probably be monstrous, and like, you know, he's Juilliard trained, you know, like
Right.
and I bet you he was wonderful on stage. That doesn't mean you know, it doesn't mean that all the parts in TV or film are right for him, you know.
Well, right. And there's no movie, nothing that I ever see him in where I'm not like, there's Superman. Like,
Yeah.
there's, he will always be and forever like who I think of as Superman when people initially start talking about Superman movies. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's Superman. When I think about Superman just in general, I'm like, Christopher Reeves. That's the
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Now, do you
So-
feel that way about Michael Keaton for Batman?
No,
Yeah. Because I think we've had.
I think
I
it's
think
Adam
we've
West.
had-
I think it's
Well,
Kevin
here's the thing.
Conroy.
Yeah.
I think it's a
We-
cartoon.
We've had multiple for Batman. We've had multiple really good versions of it with
Yeah.
totally different people playing Batman. So it's easier to and of course Michael Keaton was able to have a great career before and after Batman.
Yeah.
But Kevin Conroy, yes. Christian Bale also. You know, when I think of
Mhm.
I do think of modern Batman. I don't think of Ben Affleck or
No.
you know, anybody else who's played them, and who knows if I ever will. But
I mean, I stand by it. I think Henry Cavill is a good like Zack Snyder world Superman. Like he does a really good job with that Superman, but like the movies just I feel like don't hold up. And we could do a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
on why I think that he just set the wrong tone with Man of Steel. But it's unfortunately like that tone carries throughout all subsequent Superman included DC movies, and it just doesn't, you know, like ultimately, like I give Cavill props, but Christopher Reeves is the guy, you know.
yeah, no, I think you nailed it there. So yeah, it's interesting to see, you know, what this role would be for him, and whether or not it would have an impact in what he's trying to do, and how this ties to the other Superman movies. But speaking of what is going on with Superman in 1987, and it's our very good friends Menahem Golan and Jorn Globus. That's right, the group behind
the
the
Cannon
Cannon
crew.
films. Yes, the Cannon Group has bought the rights to the Superman films, and from Warner Brothers, which was surprising to me that Warner Brothers kind of gave up on it so quickly. You know, they had, one was a massive hit, two is a massive hit, three, I don't know what the numbers were on three, but was definitely not the hit that the other ones were. But I don't know, there was still a lot of gas left in the tank for Superman potentially, and they sold it off to Cannon, who, if you want to hear a very deep dive about Cannon Films, listen to our episode looking back on the history of Cannon, the Cannon Group, in the archives at www.reconciliation.com. Our good friend E.K. Wimmer joined us for that episode. But 1987, 86, and 87 were their prime years, where they were putting out more movies than they ever had before. And, they had a tendency to try to make deals for superhero films. They also did it for Spider-Man and Captain America, and would put full page ads out for the movie without having anybody attached to it, or that was their way to like throw something against the wall, like
Drum
Chuck
up
Norris
some excitement
as Superman, but yeah, they would put kind of misleading ads out there, or movies they thought were going to happen that just didn't. But
Chuck Norris as Captain America, that should have happened.
That should have happened for sure. But yeah, really interesting to think about what were they planning for Superman, because they certainly were low budget filmmakers who were not going to handle it the same way Warner Brothers did for the first two Superman movies.
No. Well, and we saw that in Superman 4.
Yeah.
Right?
But the first
didn't they use like this movie as kind of a carrot to dangle for Christopher Reeves to do Superman 4? Because he was also not interested in doing that at the time.
He was really, after 3, was done with Superman, was already struggling with finding good roles outside of it, and didn't want to play the character anymore and be stuck with it. But he was, this was one of his pet projects that he was kind of, developing for years, and the carrot was dangled that, if you do Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, we will finance Street Smart. So,
right.
That's a tough thing to say no to. And
yeah. So did Christopher Reeves think that this was going to be an opportunity for him to kind of like shake that image?
I imagine so. I mean, with the proper release, why wouldn't you think this could be an Oscar contender for him?
Yeah.
Not saying it was that, but before going into it, that like, yeah, this is my Oscar movie. This is the movie. This is a real, gritty character that I can show my range, and it has nothing to do with Superman. And you see the weakness of the character, and just something that, could really get him critical attention.
Yeah. And then along comes Morgan Freeman, who actually does drop an Academy Award caliber performance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to go to Harvard to know what you're doing. You know what I'm trying to say to you, man? Do you? Yes, I do. Well, then shut the fuck up. You don't tell me how people react to me. I know what people are doing no matter what they say. Because I read minds, you dig? I don't take no shit off of you. You lying through your fucking teeth. I know it, you know it, and this fucking hoe know it.
Come on, leave him alone.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, Morgan Freeman was, at this point, he'd been around since I think really the early 70s. He'd been acting,
but he was anything but a household name,
not even recognizable in things other than he was in the Electric Company for I think 7 or 8 years, which was wasn't a PBS children's show.
This is true.
That years later, a good friend of ours, William Jackson Harper, would also get one of his early roles on the newer Electric Company.
Well, there you go.
Everything connects. So
it sure does.
But yeah, so I mean, really, if anybody knew him, it was really from that. And to go from doing a children's show like that to Fast Black in this movie you couldn't have had a bigger leap.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, polar opposite, and really like very different than a lot of the roles that he in general is in. You know,
Yeah.
like he doesn't play a lot of bad guys, but he's a bad guy in this one.
Oh, he
Oh, yeah.
is not a good person.
Yeah.
But yeah, really amazing performance here, and the movie in general. But just before we get back to Morgan, this is one of, I think, only two respectable canon films. This and Runaway Train are like the only two real legit respectable movies that they did amongst your slew of Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson and Michael Dudikoff films, as much as we love all of those.
Listen, the Dudikoff only does respectable films.
I am about to get 2 roundhouse kicks to the face before I even say another word.
American Ninja 77.
But yeah, Morgan Freeman is really truly the greatest element of this movie.
Yeah, by far.
And we'll get into the plot here in just a minute.
Well, and this could be career launching, because this got him. I mean, he got the Golden Globe for this. It was nominated for the Oscar, but won Boston Society Film Critics Award, Independent Spirit Award.
Oh, 100%.
Los Angeles Film Critic. That was like, this was like, if they hadn't noticed him, this was what he was noticed for, right? Like, this is career making, because look at the next 3 years of movies he comes out.
Oh, I mean, you
with.
look at 89 with, I mean, like, listen, like Lean on Me isn't necessarily the top draw in that year for him, but like Lean on Me is a strong performance from him. And then he follows that up. Follows that up with Driving Miss Daisy, which is like got tons of like Academy acclaim, and then Glory, which, I mean, everybody in that movie, like, I mean, that launched not only, I mean, more, Denzel Washington's career. Like, I mean, there's just like, that movie was a huge deal when it came out. Like, those are 3 movies all in one year that, if you didn't know who Morgan Freeman was before that year, you sure as hell did after that year.
Well, that was his stamp of, he is cemented just within that 1 year that this is now a player.
Yep.
Yeah. No doubt.
I mean, those are completely different roles. 3 completely different roles. And I just watched Lean on Me a few weeks ago for the first time, and he's amazing in it.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Oh, that was the first time you'd seen it?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I saw it when it came out, but I didn't remember it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, to your point, David, Fast Black is the one that, like, that character is what kind of sent him on that trajectory for sure. Like, there's no doubt.
He had to be getting way better offers or, opportunities to audition and whatever. And he was
getting roles with meat, like roles like, I mean, it was,
he was
absolutely.
He was probably offer only after 89. I mean, at that point, I doubt he was reading much.
No. Yeah. I mean, by 89, he was a multiple time Academy Award nominee. Did he win for Driving Miss Daisy? Did he win supporting actor?
He may have.
I'd have to look that up.
Check that on the Reconsineputer.
I think it is. He's only won once.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, and then the next year it
was $1 Million Baby, but he was nominated for Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
And of course the Street Smart. So I mean,
right.
Just getting the Oscar nom there.
Exactly. Yeah. But between those, you're multiple Oscar nominee. Like, yes, you're not really auditioning for movies anymore. And he never really let up. I mean,
no, I mean, the next year it was like Bonfire of the Vanities, which didn't do great, but like the expectations for that movie were pretty high. And then the year after that, it's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which was a big deal.
Yeah. And then Unforgiven, then Shawshank, then Seven, not long after that. I mean, then he was, just top level. So
let me see if he was up for a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award at any point.
Please check those right away. Did
Doesn't
he get
look
slimed?
Like it. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like he was even nominated.
But none of those would have happened without this movie. Like that's the great thing about it is the intensity of the role, the passion that he played this character, the believability of it. uh, showed what he could do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about director Jerry Schatzberg, who is far from a household name. He was a New York photographer who was a big part of the scene in the late 60s and into the 70s. He dated Faye Dunaway when she was making Bonnie and Clyde. He shot the Bob Dylan album cover for Blonde on Blonde. So,
Okay.
as a
Oh.
photographer, he was definitely an established name, very New York based. Everything was in New York. He switched over to a director in the early 70s, did a movie called Panic in Needle Park, which is a great Al Pacino film, pre-Godfather. If anyone is interested, you can track that down.
I'm looking at this guy right now on IMDb, and I'm not gonna lie, Johnny looks like your pops. I'm not. There's you got to check this dude out. Like headshot.
I've seen him.
I'm telling
I've
you,
seen him.
This dude could be your dad.
Maybe he was.
Sorry, it's like a total aside, but I'm like, holy, that's Mr. Diner.
What else he did a movie called Scarecrow, which stars Pacino and the Hack, Gene Hackman. Another great film, Seduction of Joe Tynan with Alan Alda, Honeysuckle Rose. All those movies are movies that have seemingly been forgotten by time. Like a lot of the 70s films just never really got huge DVD releases, or maybe they're out just not publicized and not really talked about. They're maybe not quite to the level of the big 70s movies, but still good quality nonetheless. But yeah, nobody talking about those films anymore. This film, the Cannon Boys, Golan and Globus, looking to save a couple of dollars, moved the movie from New York, where it's completely set, to shoot in Canada, and they ended up saving about $1 or $2 million doing that, which was great, but hard to capture that New York feel. I feel like Schatzberg did a great job with still making it feel like a New York movie.
Yeah, some of those streets for sure. The street shots.
Yeah,
I bought it. I was I totally
feels
bought it.
like legit New York. So proved it could be done. Another, Brent, you mentioned earlier the other great performance in this movie.
Yeah, Kathy Baker. Holy shit, she's really good in this as well.
Yeah,
and it's like subtle things too, man, that I picked up on when I was watching it. And it's just like there's this scene where they're outside. I don't know if it's like a pizza window or a hot dog stand or whatever, and Morgan Freeman just quickly slaps her. Like her reaction to that slap is like really excellent. Like it's just like very subtle, kind of nuanced, but she's really, really good in this. I mean, there's a ton of things throughout, but like that, having seen it twice in the last week, that one stands out. I just am really impressed with her performance in this.
Yeah, that's after they leave the the party they're invited to.
Yeah, that's right.
And he backhands her at the ice cream stand.
Yeah, he thinks that Christopher Reeve's character is being condescending.
Yeah.
And she's trying to explain that he's not, and he's not, and Morgan Freeman's not having any of it.
Yeah. She's brilliant in this. And at the time I knew of her from two things, and that was the Neighbor and Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Also covered here on the podcast, Reconsideration.
Which she's also great in.
Yep. And she's the Tom Skerritt's wife, the mom in Picket Fences.
Yeah.
That was really where I knew of her. So when I saw her in this, I was like kind of shocked that this wholesome lady could play such a scandalous character.
Yeah.
And she was also in The Right Stuff. I think was one of she hadn't done very many movies before this, but The Right Stuff was one. Great film with recently deceased Fred Ward and Sam Shepard. Maybe we might have to look at The Right Stuff one day.
Yeah, we should. I remember watching that movie a ton as a kid. It was on like repeat at my house. My grandfather worked at NASA at the time, and it was just like always like we were very NASA happy family. So it was like Definitely. I think Ed Harris is in that as well.
Yeah, Ed Harris, Scott Glenn, just
Yeah,
all around
it's just
great.
a ton. The cast is just incredible.
It's huge. Dennis Quaid.
It's the first movie also I ever remember that was on 2 cassettes, like 2 VHS.
Oh, is it?
Ah,
Yeah,
the
What?
first movie you saw on that was a double tape.
that was a double tape. Yeah.
Mm. I'm trying to remember what mine had to be The Godfather. It had to be that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the movie itself here. So, and enough with this setup. We've set the table. Now, here we go. So the theme of the movie, or one of the themes of the movie is I don't know if media manipulation is the right term for it, but
Well, yeah. I mean, isn't it kind of a commentary on the honesty in media?
yeah,
Like, I feel like back historically, like it was very important, with sources and checking sources and citing sources, like to fact check and make sure that the news that was being reported was as factual as possible, had integrity, and I feel like recently that kind of stuff has really been called into question, but I think this movie is doing that too, right? And
Yeah.
then, I was less aware of it as a kid growing up, and really honestly, until Gene Youngblood's Media and Democracy class, like that
Mhm.
was like kind of the first thing that really like shed light on the fact that like, news, if not kept in check and factual, could be, misleading and send people down the wrong track. And although this is a little different, like it still stems from the fact that like this dude was making something up and it directly was related to somebody who is real, and that's what caused like kind of all the turmoil within the movie.
yeah. I mean, it's very hard to say with the state of media now, how many are still fact checking and what that fact checking entails.
I think you'll still see that in print journalism for the most
Yeah.
part, and I mean mostly everything that's considered journalism is you're still going to see high standards. The problem is on television, it is completely mixed opinion with editorial,
Right.
or
Well,
and that you can't. There's just a slant in one direction or the other on how things are presented.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah, there's more of a spin on
problematic.
things.
Yeah.
24 hours news cycle has been one of the most damaging things to journalism. I mean, it's got to be the single most damaging thing.
Yeah.
What was the springboard? I mean, I remember like we're going to get off the rails a little bit, but was like 9/11 kind of the first?
No,
Probably happened before with like the Gulf Shield,
Yeah.
the Gulf War.
I think the Gulf War was really where CNN really took off.
Yeah.
CNN,
And then as that
became-
kind of came up through the 90s, Fox News kind of came up as a counter to it, although not as almost violently counteracting each other until after 9/11. And then they were just
Right.
opposites, but getting further and further, more and more extreme on either end. So it's,
Yeah.
it's it's best not to believe or go with what you see on either site and find
Yeah.
something neutral that isn't really leaning one direction or the other.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. All popular news media is corporate owned, and
Mhm.
and the news business used to not be a profit center for these corporations. They were always loss leaders. So the sitcoms on ABC were paying for ABC News. You know what I mean? So that's no longer the case. So ABC News is what? Not the Good Morning America and all that. Like that's it's infotainment, and it's not
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
it's not really a news program, I guess. But
No,
that's-
well, you're certainly not getting hard hitting news on those shows.
no, but it's yeah. So
When I was
CNN
younger, guys, it was Regis and Kathy Lee. That's where I got my hard news from.
That's where you got it.
That was it.
And you could bake some ziti.
Yeah, exactly. You could break up the news with some.
one of the most horrifying stories for me for this media change is when Jeff Zucker from NBC, who had produced Good Morning the Today Show, became the president of CNN. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like
Right.
that was it. That was like that was the final nail in the coffin of like what CNN produces for me, so I don't,
Yeah.
I don't like, I don't know what he did in a former life to get blessed to do what he got to do, but he turned it into quick money infotainment real quick.
Yeah.
So I mean, God bless him. Whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, all right. So yeah, the honesty of media back then was a lot different than now, but even then, he could, the opening scene is Jonathan Fisher is Christopher Reeve's character's name, sitting in with his editor and played by Andre Gregory, and pitching ideas, and nothing is at all captivating, and he just on the spot kind of makes up an idea about a fast talking pimp with a high living lifestyle, and he gets the assignment to write this story. Well, there is no actual character that he knew, so he ends up making up and fictionalizing this whole story, which is ridiculous. The pimp with the house in Hawaii, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't think
It's
that's
outlandish.
Which kind of points to like the sort of the sort of the white bias of like, well, what would anyone who's rich, like they would get a condo in Maui, like that's like,
right.
And it's sort of
Right.
like a white kind of thing. I thought at the
Yeah.
like watching it again, I'm like, because he kind of laughs and he's like, oh yeah, he had to maintain the lie. He's like, yeah. And just like, he probably, even if he was a million super millionaire, he probably wouldn't go to Maui.
Yeah. But I don't know, the movie feels like, watching it this time, I felt like this is like two different movies.
Absolutely.
That it's the Jonathan Fisher story about this news report, and him and his girlfriend and what's happening to him in this fast moving story. The pace of the movie is really fast, in that suddenly he's getting talked to at dinner by TV news producers, and then suddenly he's a TV star, and that happens like overnight, which I don't think that would, but so you've got that whole storyline versus Morgan Freeman's Fast Black, and what this character's actual life is like, and how he's hearing about some reporter has based a story on him, even though that's just pure coincidence, that what Reeve or Fisher's describing is very similar to the Fast Black character. Everyone sort of assumes that that's him. But his, daily life and what's going on with him. And then finally they intersect with each other, and where it starts to get dark. But I don't know. Do you guys believe this story? Do you feel like it's believable the way it's told here?
I do not.
Yeah, it's
I do not.
It seems very dramatic, like Hollywood dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything's just
implausible,
awfully,
but
it's just weird. Like, I don't know, like there's a lot of conveniences, and to your point, like the pacing is really off. Like they're at the back end of the movie, like they're jumping basically from scenes of Christopher Reeve in prison talking to a lawyer, not always his lawyer, sometimes it's the other lawyer, and then it's like to Fast Black, and like you have no idea how much time is like going on in between, but there's huge chunks of time that have happened, because I mean the Kathy Baker character, gets killed at one point, and it's like, well, when did it? We don't see any of that other than her talking to Fast Black after she leaves one of these office buildings, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know. Like it does feel incredibly fast paced. It feels like there's a lot of conveniences. It also feels like nobody trusts Christopher Reeves. Like the lawyers don't trust Christopher Reeves. His girlfriend doesn't trust him. His Fast Black doesn't even trust him, and he's like the evil dude. Like he's, I'm just like, it's just kind of weird. I don't know.
Does
all of
editors
it
trust him?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
they at least they say they do.
Yeah. I think that's
yeah,
a good point.
the pacing, I had a big problem with the movie this time just because of the pacing. It just moves, like you mentioned, that the timeline is really hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
Which, if it was clearer that this is happening over the course of 6 months, 8 months, whatever, like that would be probably make it a little bit easier to swallow, a little more realistic. But it feels like, is this happening over like a week? Like,
It's
every nothing.
months.
It
Yeah.
feels like it, right?
It definitely
Well, I
happens
mean-
over months.
And he's in prison. He's in jail because he's not like giving the notes,
Yeah.
right?
Well, everybody
for the
wants the notes.
for the article. So he's in contempt and he's just in prison.
But he
Or
said he
in-
didn't have. Well, and then he starts saying he didn't have them. They don't exist
Like, I don't understand
Yeah.
why they don't believe he doesn't have the notes.
because every decent reporter would have notes. Every
Yeah.
there's the assumption that if he did his job, he'd have notes.
Yeah. But because so Jay Patterson is the assistant district attorney, and
Right.
you might recognize him from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Of course.
the movie. You might recognize him.
Who did he
David,
play?
think about it. He's like the kid who joins the
The kid?
Shredder. The 30-year-old kid who joins the clan. His dad. He's
He's
like
the
the
dad.
dad character. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, he's Jay Patterson's performance a little bit over the top, a little aggressive, in every scene. I'm sure that's how he was directed, but he goes after Jonathan Fisher pretty intensely right off the bat, makes no, first attempt to get these notes. He just comes off like kind of the asshole route, right away, and demands the notes from him, and you go back and forth, and eventually Fisher won't give the notes because they don't exist. No one would believe that he doesn't have the notes. Any reporter would have them. So he gets held in contempt, thrown into jail.
But like, what are the similarities of the story? Like, Fast Black doesn't have a place in Hawaii. Like, if you just went through and read the story and actually like interrogated Fast Black without giving him any information, like, you're gonna be able to prove pretty quickly that it's not the same guy.
Well, is it that he killed somebody? Is it the coincidence and the timing of that? We see
Yeah.
Fast Black in like one of the first scenes with him, kind of coming to the rescue of one of his prostitutes, and ends
Oh.
up unintentionally killing the John that's in the room, and but I think the timing of that happening and then this article coming out is what leads people to believe he's written it about Fast Black.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just bad timing, bad luck.
Absolutely. But like, to me, it seems like a stretch that an article that you didn't write about a person, even if there's similarities, is impossible to prove that you made up, which is how they play this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, this is impossible to prove that he didn't make it up.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there sort of just would have been calls to like, all right, the editor's got to see the notes. Somebody's got to see it. Somebody,
Right.
and then like, yeah, if the facts of the thing, but the DA is convinced, he sees the guy he's targeting as the guy in this article, and then it turns into a conspiracy, like where, he changed the story about to say that he didn't have notes, and then now he's not going to give up the notes, and then they don't exist. Like he just kept changing his story or whatever. So then no
Well,
one knew what to
yeah.
believe. It's like, yeah, just kept bouncing around to that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
He was
just-
certainly super wishy-washy.
a couple
Yeah.
of phone calls should have crumbled the case.
Yeah.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
Art Sheffield and Leonard Pike, both those characters, I don't think were very good at what they were doing.
Yeah. And one thing that jumped out at me is the sort of satirical look at the newspaper side of the story, really just leaning into these rich white people and,
Right.
just living in a completely different world than Fast Black. And when they kind of parade Fast Black and Kathy Baker through that party was just like a little too a little too much. Like didn't that Andre Gregory's character just did not feel grounded in reality at all, mixed with Morgan Freeman's character who feels super grounded in reality. That the balance just wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. For me, like, I don't know if Morgan Freeman's character was grounded in reality or not, or if they're both just like over embellished like stereotypes that they're playing against. But one of them does seem satirical in nature, and the other is gritty, and like they don't mix well. Like they're like two different tones that as like when they're playing against each other just seem to contradict the storytelling.
Yeah.
So, that's I think the problem here for me.
When they allow themselves to meet Fast Black and they have Jonathan Fisher bring Fast Black to this party that the editor is having, which is all rich white people, and Fast Black is like recruiting, seemingly recruiting all, or not all, but the editor's wife and a few other people, and it's like they're falling, like they're obviously a different cultural status level, and
kind of enamored by it.
Yeah. I mean, they're just playing along, but at a certain point, like we see earlier in the movie when Jonathan Fisher has his girlfriend, played by Mimi Rogers, kind of go into a seedy bar, and then another pimp, basically just takes possession of her. Like we see how quickly those situations can change and how dominating those characters can be and how dangerous it truly is. But they're just flaunting it at that party. They're just flaunting, that it's almost like a joke to them.
Well, that's why it was so important for Black to say, I know how they saw me. I know she buys their shit. I don't. He knew he was being put on as a spectacle, and he leaned right into it. He didn't care. He knew exactly all this BS that was going on.
But he was pissed off later about it.
Well,
he was pissed off because he felt like Christopher Reeves was playing him like he didn't know that, like he was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but he's not dumb. He's street smart.
Yeah,
he's street smart. But like that's like when he's like, yeah, you guys did a really good job. He's like, don't patronize me. Like I know I was good. Like I know all this BS. Like so it's he knew how he as a black man, as a pimp, as a man from the street, was being looked at by all these rich white people with high status white people, and he was basically making fun of them, like by being there and playing up all this his role, like he's like some sort of exotic kind of specimen of humans, like this and like they're only interested in him because he's also wealthy, right? Like think of like there's such a stigma of sex work, and it's how criminalized it is and all of that. But so if he's a pimp for all these sex workers doing all these illegal stuff, but he's rich and wealthy and owns condos everywhere, sure, come into the party. Like, because we're all rich, we're all rich together. You're just different. You're weird. You're a different kind of breed of person. That's why he was accepted. They almost believed he was super wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, am I mistaken? But like some of the interactions that Kathy Baker had with some of the other characters that were in that party, it led me to believe like they had history, right? Like
she mentioned that she knew, like there was somebody that she knew there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, so there's everyone's in on it. Like this is just part of life in the city.
Right.
But you can be rich, you can be a criminal, and you can be rich, and you can be a pimp, or you could be like whatever, some sort of insider stock trader, executive, government person, whatever, any number of things, and you could all go to the same party. But he sees it as but Black sees it as the bullshit that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if he wasn't, he wouldn't otherwise belong there.
Right. And that's why when Andre Gregory came up to him and like we talked about earlier, asked him about the the condo in Hawaii, it was kind of fortifying that, like we're different, but we're the same, we're kind of at the same level. We're neighbors. Right.
Right.
And so, that helps kind of solidify that thinking there.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Fast Black wants Fisher to basically write him an alibi that will get him off of so he's on trial for the murder of the person he killed in the beginning of the movie that we were just talking about. So they want to use each other. Fast Black wants to use Fisher to give him an alibi to say he was not anywhere near there on the date of the murder because he was with Fisher like in a different part of town doing something public that would get him off of the case. So yeah, it's interesting how they seem to need each other for a while. And there's some great, we talked about how great of a performance this is by Morgan Freeman, and there's a couple of scenes in particular of just absolute intensity. One where he is showing Jonathan Fisher around town and has him in the front seat. It's interesting that this all takes place in the front seat of their car. It's a bucket seat,
old Cadillac, bench seat Cadillac.
Yeah. So Jonathan Fisher's stuck in the middle where they pull over. They see one of Fast Black's ladies who's been potentially, skipping out on him and trying to go into business for herself. And you see Fast Black kind of lull her into the car, sitting right next to Fisher, where he breaks, was it a Yoo-hoo bottle? And, holds the glass right up to her face and is threatening her that I'm going to kill you if you belong to me. And if you don't think so, I'm going to kill you. And when Fisher tries to just get him to back off, like he shoves the glass right in his face too. So you see, that's the first turn you see of that character of like, this guy is lethal. And he's almost like a wild animal.
Don't be confused by his behavior. Like he could snap.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You could almost still be on his side, even though, he beats up the John, but the John was beating the crap out of the woman. So he was doing his job protecting her.
Right.
So it's like, oh man, he's got sure, it was an accident, but he didn't actually, kill the guy, in a sense, like he contributed to it or whatever. There is a manslaughter kind of thing, but he was up for murder too. Like this is, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But like Morgan Freeman is charming, smart, intuitive, like just smart, and then he flipped and it's scary. Like I was like, you wanted to, I liked this character until he became super violent. Like, oh no, he's so threatening and menacing. Like that's scary as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially, towards the end of the movie when he has Kathy Baker's character has become more and more friendly with Jonathan Fisher. First they do sleep together, but they, she always, it's funny, she always seems to know exactly where he is. He's doing his reporting somewhere in the city. Like she just always shows up.
Yeah.
But, she's getting a more honest relationship with him, and Fast Black does not like that and is worried about who she's talking to and what she's saying. And is she becoming a threat to him? And that there's a scene where he, puts the scissors in her face and screaming at her.
I could rip out your nose. Or I could snip off your lips. But you've been looking where you shouldn't. So it's your eyes that need to be punished. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take an eye. Just one eye, though. I want you to tell me which one you want me to take. The left one? And you want me to take the right one? What, left?
No.
Well, which one?
I'm sorry, please.
Let's take the left eye.
No.
The right?
No,
the left?
please.
Well, which one? You want me to take the
I don't know.
left?
I don't know.
The right?
I don't
You
know.
want me to take the left?
I don't know. Let Left.
Go on, get out. Do me a good night's work. Okay?
He's gonna cut one of her eyes out, and
Yeah.
she gets to pick which one, and it's such an intense scene. It's really brilliant, just the performances of both actors. Of you completely buy it, and it's chilling.
Yeah, it's probably, I think this, I mean, for me, you're right. It's a very strong scene. I think it's probably the strongest scene in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's any scene where Fast Black is dominating someone, even when he pulls Jonathan Fisher into the back room of their restaurant and like beats him up, really.
Right.
Like Superman just got his butt kicked by this guy. Those are all really powerful scenes because it just shows the strength of this character, who doesn't look like a strong, tough guy, but he knows how to use it.
Right.
Because he's street smart.
Street smart.
Yeah. So now the ending of the film, I actually really liked the ending the first time I saw it, and this time I didn't love it as much. I could have gone with we mentioned the pace being so fast. I could have gone with a little bit slower in the third act, where we're building and building, maybe like 10 more minutes or something. Where we see everybody's in danger for whatever reason, but it's happening so fast it's really hard to just be able to digest the whole thing. And so Fisher quickly manipulates I forgot the name of Fast Black's sidekick character.
Right.
But his buddy
why do I want to call him Roscoe? It's not Roscoe, is it? Reggie.
Yeah, Reggie. That he manipulates Reggie into seeming like he's turning on Fast Black, and then ends up when Fast Black is just out, like legitimately just looking for him because Reggie's been gone. Reggie panics and ends up shooting and killing Fast Black, and it's just for such an intense performance and such a great role. It feels like such a cop out of an ending to me. That
it all happened. Like, I mean, it even before then, it's like it goes from that really awesome, intense scissor scene to like a scene in the prison or in the jail. Then it's like it cuts to a scene, and then Christopher Reeve's girlfriend gets stabbed. Then it cuts back to the prison. Then it cuts to Kathy Baker walking out of a building and Morgan Freeman walking up to her,
which is a great scene also right there.
It's super quick though. Like there's not a lot. And then it cuts back to a scene. It's like, oh, Kathy Baker's dead. And then Christopher Reeves is like, I've got the notes. And then he's out of jail. And then he sets up Reggie. And then it's like, dude, wait, what? Like all like that all happens in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
really
wait,
quick.
what? Like what just happened? What?
Yeah. And it's not only is it that quick, but like, it doesn't really pay off, right? Obviously Black is a murderer and a legit threat. And Reggie stabbed Mimi Rogers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So he's got, and then he manipulates them to turn them on each other. And could Jonathan Fisher ask for a better outcome? He got the pimp murdered by his first lieutenant, and that guy's going to go to jail forever. And it happens in a second. Like, he couldn't have asked for a better ending.
And he can complete his story. He gets away with it. He gets everything.
Yeah,
loose ends tied up.
He gets Mimi Rogers back. He doesn't have to worry about Kathy Baker anymore
because she's dead. Like he's ruined so many lives.
Yeah,
he's
caused the death of at least 2 people. One sent to jail forever, and God knows how scarred his fiance was.
Right. And then presumably he would just have, and then, well, I mean, at least the DA threatens, Jay Patterson threatens him at the end, like, I'm still coming for you.
Yeah.
And which is kind of nice. I'm glad at least that scene was in there, because like, yeah, you're not a good dude, man. Like,
I know,
Yeah.
like that's the thing. Like that's the
He's-
hero's ending, right? But like, why is he a hero?
he's
Yeah.
not. He's not.
Like
not.
he's
Yeah.
just as like despicable and untrustworthy and kind of deceptive as anybody else in this whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a liar. Like, he established
Yeah.
himself as a liar straight out the gate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But you can
Funny.
imagine that even if he loses his job at the newspaper, he's still a TV star at this point.
Oh, he's gonna
yeah.
write a book.
He's
gonna,
Geraldo,
like
right?
yeah.
He's like
Yeah.
Geraldo.
Yeah. He
yeah,
would
exactly.
he'd be hosting something on 24-hour news right now.
It would be-
every night.
It would be like it would be like Donahue. It would be Fisher with an exclamation point.
Seriously.
Probably.
So good for him.
Yeah.
But
Oh, it'd be Jerry Springer.
yeah. So it's just like, and it's just a shame, because it's just, and we have that one moment where, like, what he, profiling this pimp, and he gets called out by that other news reporter who happened to be black, or not happened to be black. She was a black reporter, like, who probably worked her way up to be an anchor, and like, she's seeing him get offered this job because of one news story
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
exploitive of a black person making their way through through the system. He's doing it his own way. It might be technically legal. So she calls him out. She's like, if you don't think it's racist, it's still racist. It's like, and that's the only commentary on like the actual racism that's going on
Yeah.
for it. So it's
It feels heavily racist, this movie.
a lot of white people benefit from the tendency of minorities and black people to specifically live in this like lower class, where they resort to criminal activities just to survive. And but like, sex work, is it like, why was it but that was criminalized to make sure that they're keeping those folks down. It's like, you can have a
Yeah.
moral objection to sex work for sure, but that's never going away. And then it was a way to make sure to keep sort of everyone in line,
Mhm.
because
Yeah. I mean, you've got a white male savior situation happening here,
well,
kind of like you also have in Glory. Just saying,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
which
Um,
is the thing on that movie now.
and Reggie, by the way, played by Eric King, who was Sergeant Dokes on first season of Dexter, first 2 seasons of Dexter.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
did not
he was-
know that.
He was Dokes, so I knew he looked familiar. I'm like, who
Yeah.
is that? That was 30 years later, but no,
Yeah.
20 years. So anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, no, good performances by everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what a I feel like if this movie were made today, you would have a very different ending, and
yeah.
potentially even a much darker ending. What would that be? I mean, is there an ending where Fast Black gets away? Where he survives and Fisher maybe doesn't?
Yeah, there's a version of that
For sure.
And is
Yeah.
that a little more compelling?
Probably.
Probably
but
today? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
It's going to be done with social media. It's going to be done. It's like, I already don't want to see this movie.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, yeah, you'd almost want to set it still in 1987. But,
Yeah.
From today's filmmaking perspective, but I don't know. Does Fisher end up getting killed?
I mean,
does
they
he get what
probably
he
flip
sort of
everything,
deserves?
right?
Yeah.
Like all roles would be kind of reversed.
Yeah.
I assume. Which I ultimately do think it would be more compelling, just
Yeah.
in general.
they could gender swap it, and with Melissa McCarthy in the lead, and it's a comedy now. They just make it a loose comedy.
Wasn't that
No.
Heat? Didn't you guys see that one?
Heat, I thought was actually that Heat
Funny.
was really funny.
Was it called Heat?
Yeah, The Heat. It was
With-
called The Heat.
Oh,
With
yeah.
Sandra Bullock and
Yeah.
Melissa McCarthy? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun little movie.
Yeah. Not to be
Not-
confused with Michael Mann's Heat, which
Correct.
is also amazing.
Which I
Right.
just bought.
Not
Heat-
funny.
I bought the book of Heat too. Just going off.
I think I saw you posted.
Yeah, I've not read it yet, though.
Sent us an image.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Okay, now is it time for a trivia answer? Did anybody? Let me go through. Looks like some of the tweets. Maybe the answer. Do you guys know the answer?
I mean, we gave clues throughout the course of this when we brought up Michael Keaton, but
Mhm.
Oh,
All right. What is it, Brent? You got it? I feel like you know it.
I think it was the next movie that was done, Clean and Sober, right?
Clean and Sober. Morgan Freeman, Kathy Baker. Supporting roles in 1988, the very next year.
Yeah, very next year.
Yeah.
how about that?
So there
Not
you go.
done by the Cannon guys. So
Not done by the oh man, Golan and Globus. They just I could talk about those guys as I did. I could talk about them for days.
yeah, I have not seen Clean and Sober, but I oftentimes get it confused with My Life, which is another Keaton movie,
Mhm.
which I have seen and I think is really good. But has anybody seen it?
I have not. I feel like I saw Clean and Sober or parts of it a long time ago. Not enough, well enough to remember. I used to kind of confuse some of those Michael Keaton movies of the late 80s.
Yeah,
Like, was it The Squeeze? And I mean, I did love Dream Team.
yeah. Well, that's classic.
Yeah.
Dream Team, Mr. Mom,
Yeah.
Gung Ho.
Gung Ho. Yeah.
What was the newspaper one that he did?
The Paper.
Was it the paper?
There's the Paper, but that was like more in the mid 90s, I
yeah.
think.
Oh,
The man, Michael Keaton's had a great career, just
had a
like
great-
Morgan Freeman has.
absolutely.
Yeah, we got to get more Michael Keaton on the show,
Oh, that'll, yeah.
and
that's-
more Morgan Freeman.
More Morgan Freeman.
The door is now open in both cases.
We
so-
can we should do Noises Off. That's another Chris movie ensemble
true.
with Christopher Reeve. That's a great movie.
That's
And,
right. And you know what, David,
true.
you had that on your list for this whole time.
since the whole time. So if we have to
we
follow
definitely
up on,
should. Yeah, let's get it together.
2023 first quarter, Noises Off. Got it.
you and the family will love that.
Yeah.
It's-
No, I
it's
think
so
they do.
fun.
I think they already do love it. So
Oh, they've already seen it. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
It's
sure
a
your
play,
wife-
right? Noises Off is a play. Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, it's it's the original thing is a play,
yeah.
and it's about making a play.
Oh,
So now they did a film about making the play.
got it. Okay.
That's great. It's so good. Mary Lou Henner,
I remember when it came out.
Marklyn Baker.
Yeah.
Mark Len Baker in a movie.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk a little box office glory or
Sure.
not so much glory for this one?
Unfortunately.
Well, but
Yeah.
why wasn't it? I mean, why
Well-
wasn't there box office glory?
They're the Cannon Boys, Golan and Globus, just wrapped up in their worlds of Delta Force and Over the Top and Masters of the Universe, are really lose faith in this movie, and it only ends up coming out in 300 theaters. So it really stands no shot of having a successful run, which had to be heartbreaking for Christopher Reeve because this was his ticket out of Superman. The budget ended up being about $6 million. It was released on March 20th, 1987 against Burglar. But unfortunately, it does not even it doesn't crack the top 15. I don't think it cracks the top 20. It's really, you can't even find it on opening weekend. Still in theaters at that point, and on hot successful runs is Lethal Weapon, Platoon, still Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and this one ends up with only a total of $1.1 million domestic run. It ends up at number 177 of 1987, smack right between King Kong Lives and Swimming to Cambodia. So way off mark, makes no impact at all. But clearly we grew up seeing it in video stores, so maybe it made up some of that gap. I don't know if 5 million was going to make it up in home video, but probably at least lessened the injury there.
What parent like brought their kid to the store and the Superman movies were all rented and as a and then like, oh well, wait, here's Superman in the Street Smart.
Here's
movie.
this R-rated.
He's a news reporter. Cool.
Yeah. Like let's do that. Oh, and Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman, he's cool. And like,
Morgan Freeman from that kid show.
so what? Like somewhere in America, there's some kid who wanted to see a Superman movie, couldn't do it. Like they were not available, and their parents brought them home, or they picked that up.
Yeah.
And then they got a whole different thing, whole different night.
But how disappointing had to it have been for Christopher Reeve, like this being so unsuccessful, and then and not even, I mean, I guess critically, but not for him. Critically for Morgan Freeman, amazing. Right. Like this is a career maker.
Yeah, and I mean the draw of this movie was probably Christopher Reeves at the time, right?
Yes.
Like he was the biggest name in it. And I mean, you see, like after this movie comes out, Superman 4 comes out, there's like one other movie called Switching Channels, and then it's TV movies from that point forward, like TV shows and TV movies. So like it had a direct effect, I think, on his career moving forward. The lack of box office draw outside of a Superman movie, and even then, like Superman 4 doesn't carry it.
Yeah, I mean, even with Superman 4, which I did see in the theater,
so did I. Yeah,
was a disaster. I mean, it's one of the
it's
worst.
awful.
I mean, worst big budget action movies. I mean, again, we went deep into that one in our Canon Group episode, but why that went off the rails and what Golan and Globus did to kind of cut the legs out from the movie.
But I would say Canon had a huge impact on on Christopher Reeve's career, his movie career.
Well, those guys, there was a limit to what they knew how to do well, and when they went outside of that box, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunate for Reeve that it took a while to even start to recover from this. But on the other hand, Morgan Freeman and even Kathy Baker really got to, a big boost up from this one. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah. I mean, but again, their performances outshine kind of all of that, and Christopher Reeves, I think Kathy Baker and Morgan Freeman were more unknown going into this. And so, they come in unknown, deliver stellar performances versus Christopher Reeves, who has a built-in audience based on Superman and kind of an expectation of what he is because of those movies, and he's supposed to be the box office draw, and his performance is mediocre, at best. The movie is mediocre, I feel like.
Well, I do. What I'll say is, is it relevant? Is it worth watching now? I will still say yes, because I think those two performances are so strong that they are worth watching. And I think the theme of, honesty in media is also an interesting idea to explore. So I feel like for those reasons, the movie is worth watching. It's not gonna have probably the greatest impact nowadays. But I would still recommend it.
But that's, so to me, what you're saying is like, you would recommend it based on the two great performances and the social commentary and how it relates to what media and truth is today, and how it kind of evolved to where, as part of an evolution to where we are now. But that has nothing to do with Christopher Reeves or really whether or not it's a good movie, to me, so I hear you. I agree. I would see that. But I would also say this is a great performance by Morgan Freeman, but he has had so many amazing performances since, and some that I feel like are much stronger. I will say that this is interesting in that it is very different than what most of those great performances are. And so like for that, like I think you're right. I would totally watch it in that regard.
He's said too that of all his Oscar nominated performances, which I think there's been quite a few, this was his favorite still to this day.
Yeah. And I wonder if, because it's just, I mean, it is very unique compared to, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where he's.
Well, it's also, he didn't have the pressure on him because he was not a known commodity coming into this movie, that he could do it and
it's a fact.
Had nothing to lose, whereas all those movies later on that he has, there's more pressure on him to perform.
Yeah, those freckles were not yet recognizable. For sure. And one real quick before we're done, just because a little shout out, because I do love Christopher Reeves. Him circling back and doing Smallville, it was like kind of one of the last things that he did before he passed away.
Yeah.
But I thought that was totally great. I'm a huge fan of Smallville. I've seen every episode, and when he showed up, I was like, it was awesome. And so, like, I don't know that it meant much to him, but it's like anybody who was a fan of his Superman movies and all that, to have him come back and be a part of that, even though it was a small part and only in a couple episodes, it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Christopher Reeve, yes, totally agree that's awesome to come full circle. And
I think his character shows Clark. I think he named the planet Krypton or something like that.
Yeah.
It shows him where Krypton was and unlocks a lot of lore for Clark on Smallville. So it was a total passing of the torch kind of thing. Even though Smallville had been on the air for like 3-4 years by then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it took a little bit to convince him to come back to the Superman world.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Well, it's like Terry Hatcher came back.
But Terry Hatcher wasn't typecast as Superman for their whole career, No,
I understand, but a lot of old school Superman folks did come back. So.
They couldn't get the Hack.
Couldn't get Hack. He got Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder, I think, appeared once or twice.
Margot Kidder, and then Smallville's great. Like, I think it's awesome that they had everybody kind of come through. At some point, except the Hack. You're right.
Well, Christopher
and
Reeves,
Ned Beatty.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve, his whole second half of his career, with after his accident and the humanitarian work that he did was really, I think ultimately had a greater impact, more personal impact for people than anything he did prior to that. He'll always be remembered for Superman, of course, but really an incredible person. For what he had to deal with in the last, 10 years of his life before he finally passed away. But
I think when he did Smallville as kind of as a promotional thing for the work he was doing. So it wasn't just like they asked him to come back. They did a PSA at the end of each episode, and I think promoted the work that was going on. But, anyway.
But anyway, I think my opinion is that Street Smart is a movie that should be revisited. Don't have super high expectations, but for those two performances and the general theme, I think it is worth watching. It's a quick watch. It's, as we talked about, the fast pace. it's only like an hour and 37 minutes, I think. So
32, 37,
something like that. But so I don't know. There we go. That's Street Smart here.
Hey.
All right.
Good job, everybody.
Final thoughts before we wrap it up, and we've got another episode coming up in September, and then David's favorite month, Shocktober, is right around the corner. We may have some special guests coming up in the next.
Freddy Krueger?
Special guests in the next few episodes. So
Pinhead himself.
Pinhead's back, and
Not the actor.
yeah.
The actual character.
We should throw some Hellraiser into one of these Octobers.
Yeah,
we'll
once we get through the other garbage.
we got a
Garbage.
got a
Oh,
lot. We got a lot of Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees still to get through, but
Then we'll get the munchies in there.
yeah.
Jason's not an October thing. He's
No,
just a
no.
Friday the 13th.
I don't know when our next Friday the 13th is going to be. Sometime next year, but
I think it's in. Is it? I don't want to say, but
yeah,
I feel like I've looked.
yeah, I'm sure I have too.
I think it's
but-
first quarter of next year, if I remember correctly.
I don't want to objectify the man, but Christopher Lee looked really good in all of his 80s costumes, right? Like those 80s costumes. At one point, he's essentially wearing a members only jacket.
Oh yeah, and you know how I feel about those jackets.
And he had the white suit on at the end.
Big
I'm like,
fan.
man, he's got a great costumer. Like he was
I own a
Superman.
members only jacket, okay, and I wear it regularly. So
I'm just saying
I
he
need
knew how
to
to
get
wear
that gray
clothes.
one though, and that Reeves, that he's wearing in this movie. I need that one.
Yeah,
One I had in third grade.
Yeah,
it's a good jacket.
Yeah, no, but you're right, David. He always looked great.
he's a dapper dude.
Yeah,
Just knows how to wear a suit.
Yep,
Knew
he was
how
a
to wear
dapper
a
dude.
suit.
Anyway,
Christopher Reeve, not to be confused with George Reeves, who also played Superman and has an S at the end of his name.
Mhm.
But
yeah, I growing up, I did the same thing. I always said Christopher Reeves, and like it's just because
No,
it
I
was
know.
George Reeves. And
show
we
me
all do it.
It's a easy and common mistake. So.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's going to wrap things up. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias. We're Reconciliation Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. You can check our archives out at reconciliation.com. Don't forget to rate and review our shows. That gives us a boost way up into the internet stratosphere. So please don't hesitate to do that. And then check out our friend E.K. Wimmer, who does our theme song. Check out his podcast, Laser Graves. And thank you to him. Thank you to our friend Curtis Moore for the poster. And we will see you on the next episode of Reconciliation.
Take care.
Bye now.
He touched your heart in Driving Miss Daisy. No, he'll make your blood run cold in Street Smart.
Ought to blow your brains out right now.
Morgan Freeman is brilliant, unforgettable. This is one scary dude.
You ever think about dying, man?
Street Smart is electric, superb, very entertaining. For the first time on television, Christopher Reeve, Morgan Freeman, in his Academy Award-nominated performance, Street Smart.
Saturday at 9. It's on Fox 24.